Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Change Agent Radio. And I am excited. This is a special episode. We have Curtis Fenn with RedX joining us. And Curtis is going to share with us. We're going to talk about scripts, how to use them, what the best ones are. We're going to talk about ROI and numbers and how that's important to agents. And one of the key pieces that most agents are missing when it comes to this, and also just different accountability measures and coaching so that you can take your prospecting, your lead generation, and your closing skills, improve them, make more money, and change the world, which is great. So Curtis, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Jake. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome having you. So before I give everybody your bio, I want to let you know, and I didn't tell you this ahead of time, but we have 3 things in common from the bio that I'm going to share. Okay, so I don't think you'll be able to pick them out, but if you want, you can take a crack at it. If not, I'll just tell you. Okay. So Curtis has been with RedX for about 15 years, and over that time, he's had a huge impact on 50,000 plus agents, really pioneering the way for the way that we prospect different sources of listings, like 5 main sources, but expireds and FSBOs primarily. So he's been a big part of growing that. And Curtis is, I would say, one of his specialties from knowing him and reading his bio and doing some research is that not only is one of Curtis's strengths in leadership, but it's also in the sales psychology, which is a huge piece. And it's a huge piece that's missing, I believe, in most brokerages. And Curtis has been humble and coachable, right? You know, it's like we have to not forget our roots. And he used to sell popcorn door to door when, I guess, when he was younger. So tell us a little bit about that, maybe.
So I was a Cub Scout. This is where sales and interacting with people became a big deal for me. I grew up in northern Montana, so it wasn't like I could get dropped off in the neighborhood and go door to door. My mom had to drive me from driveway to driveway, and I would run up to the house and knock on the door trying to sell popcorn for Cub Scouts. And I remember being defeated, going home, and my dad was talking to me, and he said, well, essentially he said, tell me your script. You know, what are you saying? And I told him, and he said, okay, let's work on that. And we wrote out a script. He helped me write out a script with a close that said, instead of asking them if they wanted popcorn, ask them how many buckets they wanted. Right. And the first door we went out, in an old beat up brown Suburban, dropped off. I ran to the door, knocked on the door, gave him my pitch and said, how many buckets would you want? And the person said, well, I'll take 2. And I remember thinking, you know, I just cracked the code on humanity, and I was like 10 years old, you know, but yeah, that's where I got my start, and just liking to talk to people, learning about persuasion, and yeah, so that's where I got my start.
That's awesome. I'll just go ahead and throw you a bone here and kind of give you the commonalities. I've been in real estate for 15 years, the real estate sales and property management world. So that's one. Psychology and really the art of persuasion and really motivating people to do what they need and want to do and helping them come to that decision and incorporating that into sales, which is, God, it just seems so absent, and not just in real estate, but almost everywhere. And it's really simple when you study it the right way and you get taught the right way. And then the last piece is, I didn't sell popcorn door to door, but I used to be a nut boy at Disney. You ever see the Nut Boys?
No.
Okay. So I had the nut cart, right? So there's the land in Disney in Epcot, and when you're walking in, and they don't have it there anymore. I don't know if it's a danger or if maybe I just left a bad impression with them when I left. But I was in college. I was in the college program, and we even wrote a song to sell our nuts. And I'm not going to sing the song, okay? But I will tell you, it was a play off of Red Hot Chili Peppers' Under the Bridge. It was awesome, man.
That's great.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's cool. So, hey, why don't we kind of dive into some stuff, like, have a conversation and pick really, what you feel strongest to talk about, where agents will benefit the most.
So, look, I feel really strongly about all of the things we're going to talk about today. So I don't know if there's an order that I would put as most important, but I think starting to talk about the ROI and understanding numbers in your business is probably where you need to start, because that directs you in your business on what you should be doing and where you should be spending your time. Because if you're not spending time with the right people, then your scripts may not be as important, because it doesn't matter if you're spending your time in the wrong places. And same with accountability and the other things we're going to talk about. So, we've spent, in 15 years, we worked with a lot of agents, and in that time, we have done thousands and thousands of interviews. In fact, even just on our marketing team, we have over 1,000 pages of transcribed interviews with top producing agents, because we like to figure out what they're doing through big data and surveys and looking at behaviors in their business. And then we like to get on the phone and kind of crack the code on what are you really doing. And if you've been on our blog, you'll see most of our blogs are essentially that. It's us going out to top producers, trying to figure out what they're doing, and then presenting that in the way that other people can duplicate. So in that time, there's been a few things that have really stuck out to us. And one of those is top producing agents. And we can even predict how quickly someone can become a top producing agent based on how well they really understand their business and the numbers in their businesses. So, and I'm sure, Jay, you probably talk a lot about this. This is about understanding where the business comes from. In marketing, as a guy in sales and marketing background, even back in the day, so after high school, I moved to California and I sold pest control door to door, and knocked thousands of doors. Well, I don't know that I was intuitively smart enough to do this, but I was trained by a really good trainer who taught me to understand the funnel. So he said, well, you need, pick a goal, pick a goal for how much money you want to make. And we knew what commission was on each sale. So we knew how many sales we needed to make. And then through tracking, even with a little clicker that I would click every door that I would, because it's not like I did have a cell phone, but it was, big and, didn't have any functionality. So we had a little clicker that we'd click how many doors we knocked. And then we would have another clicker that you click how many people you connected with. So you could see your whole funnel. I needed to knock on this many doors to have this many conversations, to get this many pitches, to get this many sales. And I knew that I could hit my revenue or my income goal based on knowing those numbers. So it's amazing to me that you go out and real estate agents are spending, frankly, they're drowning. A lot of them just feel like they're drowning. They're spread so thin, spending their time in so many different places. And I'm going, well, how much money does spending time at this open house make you? Well, I don't know. Well, how much time does spending the time, floor time, make you? Or how much time does going out to Starbucks with your sphere of influence, how much money does that make you? And it's fascinating to me that many agents have no idea. That they just work themselves to the bone, and then they cash these big commission checks and they're like, I'm doing it, I'm successful. I'm like, that's not success, because sometimes I have an agent friend that's a local guy here who's done some work for me, and he's the kind of guy who'd give you the shirt off of his back, literally, if you ask for it. And he takes care of his clients that way. But when I asked him, well, if you broke down your hourly wage, the amount of time that you invest with your clients, are you really that successful? because at some point because when you operate and don't understand where the money comes from, you fill up, and pretty soon you're living and dying by the cell phone. You're answering client calls in the middle of the night. You're working on the weekends, and then you get these checks, but you don't even know where it comes from. And his hourly wage, if he's doing it, he's not doing that great.
You should have broke it down for him.
Making $100,000. I go, yeah, but you're working 80-hour weeks. That's not great.
And then what's not taken into account and what's usually not mentioned is the expenses that you have and the health insurance. And then, and it's the curse of the independent contractor. Most real estate agents, it's a second career. I mean, not many people are coming out of high school or college and jumping right into real estate. And the fundamentals, the foundation isn't there for most people. I mean, it just is what it is. So like you're saying, if you just go running blind, and then on top of that, we have this shiny object syndrome, right? We want to go from like this to this to this to this. And if we could only just really do good at this and understand this, and then scale it, and then go to the next thing, and then the next thing, and then build on it, and have those different sources of lead generation. I mean, but it's hard to do.
Right. Well, and I think we kind of talked about this the other day, Jay, when new agents or inexperienced agents, or maybe they've been in the business, they're just trying to figure it out still. They look at top producers and they go, I'm gonna copy what they're doing. And they ask the top producers, hey, what are you doing? They go, well, I work my database or my sphere of influence. They go, okay, I'm going to do that. Well, a new agent doesn't have they can't just copy what a top producer's doing. The top producer had a journey to get to where they are. And that journey started with whatever, like you're saying, whatever lead type they understood was the best ROI of their time and money. And for some people, that was their database. For some people, that's calling expired listings or for sale by owners, or it's going out and knocking on doors, right? It's whatever, but you've got to figure out as an agent where the best ROI is for your time and money, so that you can start to build a database that eventually you can retire on, because that recurring and business and referrals keep coming in.
Agreed. I've worked with way too many agents in the past that try to put themselves in the wrong bucket. And a lot of leadership that try to put all of the agents in the same bucket, but you can't. I mean, not every agent's going to be good at expireds. Not every agent's going to be good at working Facebook buyer leads. I mean, it's just a different skill set, and we're suited differently. And yes, we have to get out of our comfort zone, of course. I mean, that's where the biggest growth comes. But how far out of your comfort zone can you possibly go? Because some people, if they're loyal, they'll work it till they literally get sick, like physically sick. One of my agents the other day, he was asking me to put a certain amount of money into promoting some of our listings on Facebook Marketplace. And I said, okay, great. So what kind of problem are we solving? Because, we don't have a long time on market, so it's not to sell the properties. I'm assuming it's to generate more leads. He said, yeah, that too. I said, okay, great. He said, I did it in the past. I said, fine, that's awesome. So we want to generate more leads. This is cool. So tell me, in your experience, how do we track that, and what has this looked like in the past? Because you can't go spending $1,000 on something if you don't have a system in place for it that's holistic, and how to track it and understand this stuff. And that's where we all waste a lot of money, because we want to throw money at everything. Be like, oh wow, hey, that looks good. Let me try that. There's just not any clear course that will tell you that there's not just one path. Right? That's
right. Well, and just to get into some practical, we hopefully the listeners will walk away and make changes in their business. So some practical things. Well, first, in one of our studies, you're an agent making over $250,000 a year is 85% more likely to track all of the metrics in their business than an agent making less than $70,000 a year. Which for 70,000 in some markets, that's actually a good business. That's a decent living, right? I mean, that's not terrible. It's much higher than the average, but 85% more likely. And so,
wow.
And just to give some practical advice, what we found as we look at them is agents are tracking. Newer agents tend to track some metrics, but it's usually lagging metrics, which are, revenue, how much money did I make, right? How many transactions did I do? A lagging metric is something that you can't go back and change, you can't change. It's after everything has happened, right? So what they do is the only thing they're tracking is, this is how much money I made, this is how many transactions I did. But top producing agents are all about the leading metrics. What leads up to that? So that's, how many conversations did I have this week? I have an agent here in the office right now who is prospecting live in front of a group of our developers because that's how we make improvements to our product. Well, he started by saying, okay, my goal today is to make 50 contacts, right? That's his goal. So he knows that if he has 50 contacts, he knows what that means to his business, right? He knows out of 50 contacts, he knows that he's going to set, X amount of really good appointments. And out of those appointments, he's going to get really good listing presentation. And out of that listing presentation, he's going to get, a contract. And then he knows his close rate, right? So he can, once you start to understand those leading metrics, you can start to predict your business. You can start to have sustainability in your business. It's amazing to me, agents making $100,000 don't live as good of a lifestyle as somebody who makes $60,000 but receives a consistent paycheck, right? Mm-hmm. Because you know what you're going to get, you can budget from that. These agents do this feast or famine. They're eating top ramen or they're steak and lobster. They because they don't have any predictability in their business, and that's because they're not tracking their behaviors, their daily behaviors, to the end result of a commission.
Yep. So listen up, guys. What Curtis is saying is that if you want to avoid the ups and downs, the bipolarism, the roller coaster that we deal with in real estate and the mindset fluctuations, okay, like the primary method to do that is by tracking your numbers, but tracking it on the front end. And I think that especially with newer agents or just less experienced agents, which is probably do you know the number of, the percentage of real estate agents in the U.S. that are, say, under 5 years in the business or something like that?
I don't know that for the last couple of years. No,
I don't have this. That
it's actually less now than it was, or it's higher now than it was a couple of years ago. Because in a hot market, tons of new agents get in. So right now we're kind of at the peak.
34. I do know this. 34% of real estate agents in the business right now are millennials. So that's the I'm sorry, under 35 years old. And that is one of those NAR statistics that I had pulled up because that's where those are the first time home buyers as well. And that's, that's who is typically being served there. But I think a lot of the newer agents don't know those things and they don't know how to track. So let me ask you, if you have somebody that's come into the office to do live prospecting, typically if they're, say, setting a goal for 50 contacts, how many hours would you say they'd be prospecting, and maybe what kind of lead stack would they be going through? Sure,
that's great. And I love that you just said lead stack. That's a term we use all the time I love that term because...
You know why I said it?
Yeah, tell me why.
Because I read your blog and I love the word, man. So I started...
Yeah, so we do a lot of analysis on agents and the mixture of leads that they work, because you can't do just one. And I'd love to talk about that. It might be a little tangent to the 3 points, but part of that is it fixes your mindset, right? Right now he's in there calling expireds. That's his bread and butter. He loves the expireds. He's got really thick skin, so he doesn't mind that those are a little bit tougher call. He's got a really good script. There's a lot of agents in this market that all use the same script from one particular coaching organization, and he knows that if he mixes it up and does his own thing, he gets a far better result, because a lot of those expireds have already heard that. And we're going to talk about scripts here in a minute, but so he does expireds, and then right after expireds, he jumps into for rent by owner. And the reason is not only is that a really great lead type, because these are vacant rental properties, he's going after the listing, not just, an investor lead or anything. Of course, that's always that's the plan B, right? If they're not interested in listing, well, maybe they're interested in buying another investment property, right? So, but he's going after the listings. Well, those calls are pleasant calls. These are people who don't get a lot of agent calls. These are people who it's a business conversation rather than all this emotional investment because it's your personal home. These are investment properties. So when you call them and say, hey, Jay, if I could, show you how I could put more money in your pocket versus you continuing to rent this thing out, is that something we can sit down and talk about? I go, sure, because it's a transactional, non-emotional money conversation.
And what they want. They
right,
want to net.
exactly.
They want to net more money.
They want to make more money, right?
If you address that up front, then you don't get the objection.
No.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. No, you're fine. I was just going to say he jumps into those for rent by owners right after expireds, talking about a lead stack, because even as good as he is on the phone with expireds, you get beat up a little bit, and he wants to jump in and have pleasant, successful conversations. We see a lot of top prospecting agents who will after calling expireds, will call some of their sphere of influence. We even have an interview on one of our blogs. One lady even calls, she says, if I have a really rough time calling expireds, she always calls a recently past client, somebody that she just recently sold their home or just recently helped them find a home. She goes, because then it makes me feel like a superhero again. I get beat up a little bit, and then I call these people. They're like, "Oh my goodness, we love the house. It's amazing. You're amazing." And then that puts her back in the mindset to go then after a different lead type. So anyway, that's to answer your question. That's what he's in there doing. He's expireds and then for rent by owner.
Look, let me touch base on that for rent by owner, okay? Because I absolutely love for rent by owner, and I had it's unbelievable that I wasn't doing this long ago. But I have a property management brokerage as well. And I've had that brokerage and have grown that over the past 15 years. And this works so well into my business. So and the conversion rate on those are crazy, because if you call a for sale by owner and a for rent by owner, in my opinion, is a very, very similar script. And in that similar script, you can actually overlap. So if you use a script that initially will open up the conversation with choices, right? Well, I'm wondering if you had sold, if it's a FSBO, right? I'm wondering if you had sold the property, or if you still want to sell or rent it out, or that kind of thing. So incorporating that language, and then at some point in the FRBO specifically, incorporating anything about sales. But what you're doing is, in that approach, you're being their trusted advisor. And here's the piece that I don't know how many of RedX subscribers are actually doing this right now, but I have I'm very familiar with the property management world and hierarchy, because it's a lot more close knit than real estate, because there's just less. And I always call property management the sanitation business of real estate. Because even though real estate's dirty, dude, property management, it's a lot dirtier. and you're a lot more open to liability too. And it's a lot harder to make money. But yeah, it's completely different. And most agents don't get that. They think, well, I'll rent out a few properties. It's you're going to see 10X on the lawsuits when you start doing that. And you don't know what you're doing, because it is a completely separate thing. So with that said, being able to open it up to the conversation to where if they want to sell or rent it out, and if they do want to rent it out and they can't sell it, having a relationship with a local property management company that you can refer that business to, that will send them back to you when they sell. Because get this, and I was blown away when I really started digging in and finding this out. I'm in a couple of high-level masterminds with some property management entrepreneurs, and most of them, get this, don't have a sales division. Don't have a sales division.
Right.
Okay, but the churn, okay, can fluctuate anywhere in different markets from 5 to 20% annually. So that means if you have 500 units and you have a churn, which, sorry for the techno, to explain that, it's basically the people that will leave or sell. But if there's 20%, that's 100 units. And if you have a 60% shot at those, that's 60 sales, right? I mean, like, that's a lot of money. And even if they do sell, they appreciate the realtor relationships, and they usually have the right ones anyway. They have a relationship where they'll send that person back to you. So imagine this. You're an agent. You go on a listing appointment, say for an expired, and you're asking the right questions, and you find out that they want to rent it out, okay, because you're asking that question, and then you have the right company to move them over to. So now that listing that you would have lost, guaranteed you would have lost to someone else who will provide that service. Now that is future money for you in the bank. So say it's a $10,000 commission. You just made, say, $250 in a referral fee, like just for the property management, but you have that on the back end, and start stacking that up. That's good.
Yeah, again, I mean, that's the long play that I think that people don't understand, and just bringing that full circle. If people, you only have to do that a few times before you start to track the number. Like, oh, we rented that out, and then 12 months later they decided to try to sell again, or 24 months later, and it doesn't take very many transactions before you can start to predict what kind of income that can mean for you. But again, the where people are falling short is they're not paying attention to the return on the time and money that they're putting into their daily behaviors.
Yes. So listeners, we want you to have the tools to do what you need to do. And this is what Curtis and RedX are like really working on, is educating agents. If you haven't checked out their blog yet, get on their blog, and you'll get the auto emails for when they publish new blogs. But they interview top agents across the country. They take what top agents are doing and the advice that top agents have for newer agents. So you don't have to follow the same thing like Curtis said before, so everything's different. But they're constantly educating, right? I mean, like, what's your plan for your education and how you want to reaching out? Like, what kind of impact do you want to have there?
What kind of impact do we want to have there?
Yeah, because I've noticed in the past couple of years, you guys have really went from like a good game of educating agents to like really stepping it up to, in my opinion, being an industry leader.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was on purpose. I think
that's good.
This goes back to the psychology of selling. And I'm going to lay it all out for the listeners here. Here's the big secret. Here's our big marketing secrets, is that it's so hard to sell somebody anymore. Sales used to be this fine line that you'd walk between persuasion and manipulation, because the seller, or the salesman had all of the knowledge of what was going on. But anymore, all of the knowledge is available to all of us at our fingertips, right? You don't, if you walked into a car dealership today and got swindled, you're an idiot, because you could just do 3 Google searches, find out the invoice price, what the dealership cost is, what your lot fees are. You could know exactly what the cost of that car is to the dealership, and then negotiate based on that knowledge. And so it's the same with anything. So where 10 years ago we could call and convince people they needed to work expireds, that just doesn't work anymore. What we need to do is we need to educate people. And it's the reason why we also have so many different lead types now is we don't believe every agent should work expireds. Not every agent has the ability to deal with that. That takes a certain type of person to work those leads. So we have all kinds of lead types for everybody. And our goal is to educate people on how to create sustainable businesses. And we happen to provide solutions along the way that they will inevitably need if they want to create these sustainable businesses. And so we want to bring people in to our ecosystem, and we want to share what we're figuring out with you. And somewhere along the way, you're going to go, you know what, I need this type of tool, and we hope to earn the business when that time comes. So yeah, our goal is to educate agents on building sustainable businesses, which is actually what our product mission is also, is that we have tools that help agents to create sustainable business. So we're talking about tracking your numbers. Our system helps you track your numbers of all of your prospecting, so that you could look back and you go, man, if I talk to X amount of people, I know exactly how much money I'm going to make. And so, yeah, we're just helping people along the way.
Yeah. And you know what, and that's awesome, because if real estate agents, anyone listening, you can relate that directly to when you're working with your client. Okay. Because information is so readily available to them now. And look, I'll lay it out for you if you don't know this already, but consumers, they say and think, well, all realtors are the same, right? Or what do you do different? Because information is so readily available, they can find that information. And that's why there are a lot of for sale by owners. So we try at times to solve problems that aren't problems. You know what I mean? Like a problem that we think a seller has, but essentially it's our job to identify what that problem is. Just like you said, Curtis, when you do, I call them avatar interviews, where you do hundreds of agent avatar interviews, transcribe them. And I was so excited because I'm a geek, okay? I was so excited to hear you say that, because when I had started my coaching company, I had done all of those interviews myself with agents, and I had done over 50 of them for anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, had them all transcribed, and then like a geek went through all of those notes and highlighted the similarities of what the needs were of those agents, so that I could help them achieve those goals. And it's ever changing, isn't it?
Yes. Yep.
With the information and everything out there, it's all changing. It's not, knowledge is when you're on Facebook and you see all of these ads, every third post is an ad. And if you're an agent that's putting ads out in Facebook, okay, which is a good place for a lot of people to get money if you're tracking it and you have a good ROI. But what makes your call to action different? What makes your hook different? How are you capturing someone's attention? Because, and I don't know if you know the stat, Curtis, but I've done extensive research on the attention span of a goldfish. So I know, right? Which is 8 seconds, and ours as human beings is 3 seconds. 3 to 5 seconds we have to capture someone's attention because of their short attention span, which is critical with scripts, which kind of leads into that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This morning, I'm listening to a great book called The Persuasion Code. It's the guy's second book. He wrote a book called Neuromarketing, and it's all about our brain. Really fascinating book. It gets pretty deep though, so if it's your first exposure to marketing, don't read that one first. But in that book, their research says people, because they hook people up and they measure skin tension and micro expressions and the brain and heartbeat and everything, and then they do all these studies, and they say that someone's website, the impression that somebody has of their website is made in 50 milliseconds. which is faster than you can snap your finger.
Wow. So like their initial impression, you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it flashes before their eyes, they can measure micro expressions of like confusion or excitement within 50 milliseconds.
Unreal.
So yeah, it's just not a short attention span. It's that our lives are so busy and so distracted that the limbic system in our brain, the part of our brain that is responsible for our survival is making decisions of, is this going to be good for me or bad for me in milliseconds. So yeah, when you talk about scripts and you talk about wanting to speak to them and connect with them in a way that they don't feel like you're just wasting your time, that's really important to have to understand what are you actually going to say. And of course, visual is much different. You're visually, that part of your brain reacts far quicker than language or when we talk. So on the phone, I think you have a little bit longer than 50 milliseconds to make an impression, because you couldn't even say hello in that amount of time. But yeah, understanding what to say. Our research shows that agents who make over $250,000 a year, 81% of them use a script when they prospect. 81%. Yep.
That's good. I don't know why I'm writing this down. This is going to be transcribed, but I might want to remember it.
And when we see something that drastic from that separates the top producers, we usually get on the phone and start to interview people and ask people why, and try to figure it out, right? And this isn't new. You probably heard this from if you've read any amount of prospecting books or gone to any real estate conferences. It's not new, but it's not just about reading a script. It's about knowing what to say to connect with people, and then internalizing that, and then customizing it to your personality. But a couple of things that all of the scripts had. Scripts is your forte, Jay. So jump in here and educate us a little bit.
Let me ask you this, actually, because I mean, you have a ton of knowledge that I want you to share with this, and I love what you just said. So I want to ask you something about that. Yeah. You have to adapt it to your personality, but there's certain things to say and include. But I think what you were also referencing before is that a lot of agents feel that they have to go through the scripts verbatim and sound like everybody else. And you're taught and scrutinized, like, don't get off the script. So if you get off the script, then you feel bad. Like, you feel like you did something wrong and it's not going to work And actually, like, when my whole business changed was when somebody tells me what to do and I commit to doing it, I do it full out, like dialed in for a long time, years. And then when I finally made that switch, like, everything started to change. So could you talk to the effect of adapting scripts and what you've seen other agents do, what's been effective? What are some of those key things that the listeners should be thinking about when they're doing it?
Right. So in all the years and the tens of thousands of agents that I interact with, I've never met anyone who has had a conversation with a seller or a buyer on a call that went exactly the way their script was written, right? Or exactly the way they role play it every single time. That just doesn't happen. So you've got to start somewhere, though. It's all about the foundation. And I do believe that agents should, even if they take a script and they want to interject their own personality right at the beginning, still write it down. What we do here, because we have 10 sales guys here, what we do here is we have a script that they are to follow. If they want to change it, then they write it down and they do the change and track the numbers to see if it increases their closing rate, right? And And so if you're going to change it, but you can interject and then start to track and start to iterate and tweak based on that. But you have to start by memorizing as a foundation. Now, the adaptability of that then, so memorization doesn't equal non-custom. It doesn't mean that you have to be a robot on the phone. It doesn't mean that you don't use intonation and voice. There's a few tricks there. If I could, there's a few tricks, and we even do this on our sales floor here, is everybody has a standing desk. Well, it's one that goes up and down. And we often go out there and say, change your state. That's a common phrase that our sales manager will use because your physical state translates in the way that you communicate. I'm blessed with whatever I'm blessed with too. If you tied my hands, I probably couldn't talk, right? I just, I have to use my hands when I talk, and that's, that helps, especially when I've done sales over the phone, because people will see me. In fact, everybody knows if there's a webinar going on and I'm doing a live webinar, I'm standing in my office and I'm pacing around and I'm, shaking my fist, and I can't help it, but people should do that on purpose.
Yes.
That's just something about me. But when you're on the phone, you should do that, because that is a way that your written script or your memorized script won't sound so memorized. Right. Yeah, so that's a place to start. We always have mirrors in front of our sales guys because, you can hear a smile and dial, that's a real thing, is people can sense that and they can feel that in your voice. If you're at your desk on the phone like this, well, your brain is going, oh, I must be tired. I must be depressed. And that translates in the tone and intonation of your voice. So there's things that you can do, but people should start by memorizing and then just change it, but still write it down, and you adapt and customize that way. Don't adapt and customize by just winging it every call you get on. Like,
oh my God. Yeah.
Like figure out what it is. Now, but again, even whatever you write down, people aren't going to follow. So one thing to remember is that a skill that comes with prospecting, it has to be practiced, is taking people, people are going to take you off script. Your skill is to follow that path to its conclusion and then bring people back to the script. Meaning if you're like, asking them a question about, trying to figure out the urgency of their move, how badly do they want to move? And you're asking questions about that, and they mention their granddaughter, by all means, you should not skip over that. You should jump on that, and you should ask questions to its conclusion, right? So, oh, you have a new granddaughter, that's amazing, congratulations, when was she born? And at least three more questions deep on that subject before you, oh, that's amazing, thank you for sharing that. Bam, back to the script, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what takes practice. But if you don't have your script written out, and memorized, it's really hard to come back to the script. The script is designed to take you to a certain place in the conversation to give the person the opportunity to say yes or no. And some people believe it's
out of the tens of thousands of prospecting calls that I've made, right? I always have my script in front of me when I'm making my calls. Always have it in front of me. And that's from someone who's has done this more than most people on the planet. So I'll look at it, and if I get off script, I'll know that it's okay, and then I'll know where to go back to. Right. It's nice to have in front of you. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it for. It's okay to have a cheat sheet. Right. It's there. Right. Why not?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's good communication. I mean, how many of you go into a conversation with your significant other and go, okay, I'm amped up, I'm going to have this conversation, and then you forget the 3 points that you wanted to make or the 3 things you wanted to go. Why not have a cheat sheet in every critical conversation that you have? On the phone is no different, right? It's good communication. It's not cheating.
What you were saying before about standing up and the energy and enthusiasm, I want to touch on two things. So with that, for the listeners, just understand what Curtis is saying is that 80% of, and I don't want to put words in your mouth or stats in your mouth, but 80% of communication, especially over the phone, isn't what you're saying, okay? But it's how you're saying it. So it's that pitch and tonality and the energy and enthusiasm and the smile and all of that stuff that comes across. Because if you're not doing that, I mean, people, they're used to hearing the same thing from other people. So when you make it different, and especially with pitch and tonality and energy and enthusiasm, people perceive that. And that makes all the difference, you know?
Yeah, energy and enthusiasm trumps the words you're saying every time.
Yeah, you know, absolutely.
And Dale Carnegie wrote about that in How to Win Friends and Influence People, you know, how 100 years ago, whenever that was written. I mean, it's people sense and feel the energy even through the phone. They can connect with that. And so, yeah, that trumps the words. That a lot of sales books talk about it. 7% of our communication is words, only 7%. 38% is our tonality.
Well, I like this.
And then 55% is your physiology. Here's a good example of that, Jay, is just words versus tone. You can say, I didn't steal the candy bar. I didn't steal the candy bar. I didn't steal the candy bar, right? I mean, I'm using the same words, but as completely different meanings.
Before you gave that example, I literally was just thinking, I stepped in dog shit today, or I stepped in dog shit today. Like that's right. What came to my mind. So, yeah.
Yeah, very different meanings, right?
Is the delivery. Like, yeah. Okay, so here's something, like here's how I pre-frame my sellers when I'm making like weekly calls, or pretty much when any kind of news comes in. I always give it as like, hey, great news, right? Like no matter what it is. So you're pre-framing them throughout the life cycle that when you call them, it's great news. So even if it's not so great news, right. Your delivery is going to, and this is another thing on the scripts, like with the pre-framing, and you know this, Curtis, like using those trial closes and getting them in the affirmative and nodding their heads and being in alignment and saying yes. So when you ask for the appointment, what are they going to say?
Right. Yes.
Yes. Yes. There you go. That's what I was looking for. That's good. I like those numbers.
Yeah. So, well, and it's all about communication. So scripts allow you to communicate better, and it is amazing. Successful people also have a lot of confidence, right? And that confidence sometimes does one of two things. Every sales guy that I've hired in, nearly 15 years will come on and they have a learning curve. And then after it kind of clicks, their sales skyrocket and they'll stay high for a couple of months and then it'll flatten. And they go, wow, how come I can't do that good? And it's always because when we listen to their calls, they've gotten smarter than the script. And all of a sudden they're not asking certain questions, and they're not doing certain things on the call because they got confident and they go, well, I'll just do it my own way. Right. There's this phenomenal story of a CEO that took over a candy store, a candy manufacturer. They made chocolate. And in the chocolate, when he took over, there's 38 different ingredients. And so he gives a bonus for whoever can figure out how to reduce costs by cutting some of the ingredients. They cut some of the ingredients. They do a focus group. People can't tell the difference, so they keep doing it. And then after a while, sales start declining for this candy. And he's sitting there in his desk trying to figure it out, and he reaches in his drawer and he eats some of the candy. He's like, wow, this is good. And he looks, and it's one of the original. And what happened is they couldn't tell the difference with those little small changes in the ingredients over time. But after a while, you get so far from what is effective, it doesn't work. So the scripts is is you've got to nail it, and then you've got to be really careful how you just decide to go out on your own and take things away, which is why I really believe that every agent should start with someone's script. Like every agent should get your script, Jay, that you've practiced and you've honed, and it's not going to be them. It's not going to be their personality, but it's better than starting with nothing. It's better than winging it and then adapt from there. I mean, why not start with a great foundation and customize from there?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think most agents want that. But I think that, well, I mean, I know this. It's like, this is what I hear all the time. People are scared to follow a script because they've been brainwashed in the past, just like that. That's what they need to do. And they could be brand new to real estate and not even know anything about any type of training or any type of scripts in the business. But just hearing other people over the phone that follow those scripts and don't really do anything differently. So yeah, I totally agree. You know, we break it up in 3 pieces. That makes it a lot easier. And I don't know if there's any of your people or your salespeople or any of the agents that you speak to, but I break it up at the first 2 questions are pretty much the capture point. And then the middle chunk, the 7 questions there, is where you compel them. And then the last part is the capture. And I find that when I get off the script, like pretty much every time that I get off the script, like when agents find that they're not converting or they have sellers calling them back to cancel the appointments, right? I ask them, okay, well, what did you say? What did you do? Like, so one agent last week, she said, yeah, this was the conversation. So it turns out she asked the first 2 questions. Okay, great. She asked the last question. She got the appointment, right? Which is awesome, right? It's instant gratification, but she didn't move them. She didn't compel them. She didn't persuade them at all in the middle. So they have no buy-in at all, you know? So I don't know. Have you seen
and then people wonder why their appointments bail on them, you know?
Yeah.
And good agents, it's amazing how, you know, their appointment set to actual appointments is a really high statistic for good agents because they're following a script and doing what you're talking about. They're compelling them throughout the phone call and getting buy-in and getting micro commitments along the way. They're getting people committed to you and yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know what else we could say about scripts. If you don't have a script, get a script and start, you know?
Yeah. So let's hit on the last piece for agents that we told them we were going to talk about, and just accountability and kind of just results. And I guess that can kind of go into the role playing and accountability partners or any type of coaching.
Yeah. So our studies showed that agents, you know, again, making over $250,000 a year, 73% of them have had at least 1 year of coaching, while 68% of that group has had over 3 years of professional paid coaching. Now, the first question we had was, okay, well, are they coaching because they can afford coaching, or can they afford coaching because of coaching, right? So we got on the phone and we interviewed everybody, and without a doubt, it was, no, coaching got me to where I am. You know, I tried for years to go to the gym, like a lot of people, and somehow having that little thing on my keychain made me feel like I was being more productive, but I never really went. I hired a trainer, and I'll never go away from that, and it's expensive, and it's way easier if I could pay the $15 a month and just go to the local gym. They have a nice facility. But I need that accountability. And after 3 years now of working with this trainer, I don't know that he's teaching me a lot of things that are new. But man, I sure have to really get creative if I'm going to skip the gym because of that accountability to show up, right? And then I've got to get really creative in my, you know, injuries if I want to skip out on one of the workouts because he's there pushing me to get it done. So for me, coaching is, you know, certainly one of the highest forms of accountability that you can get is if you have a coach. or you hire somebody professionally, that means you've got skin in the game. You're paying somebody, and that matters. You know, we all like money. We don't like to throw it away. But there are other ways that to hold yourself accountable. Here's an interesting stat, Jay, is when we did research, we found that agents making less than $70,000 a year, about 60% of them had a written business plan. But agents making over 250, 100% of them had a written business plan and written goals. So business plan and goals. And to me, if you get consistent in, you have a written business plan, that's the goal is where you want to go. The written business plan is the path that you're going to get there and achieve it. That if you don't have any accountability in your business, that's where you need to start. And that's accountability to yourself, and that you look in every day and go, am I doing what I wrote down to get to the goal that I want to achieve? Then you add in an accountability partner or a coach or somebody that's going to help you stick to that plan. You know, then you know, the only way you're not going to succeed is if you give up. So,
yeah. And it's funny, it's what you pay also is what you end up getting out of it. So like, for example, you could have the membership to your gym, but if you're paying for a trainer and you have that extra accountability and that extra cost, you value it more. Now,
right.
Conversely, let's say you were going to get free training at the gym, right? Instead of the paid training, would you value it as much?
Right.
You wouldn't.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, there's and it needs to be enough that it is kind of uncomfortable every month when that dings your card and you go, okay, yeah. Because again, if you're like, it's no big deal, you know, $250, $500,000 a month, when that becomes no big deal, you need to find a more expensive coach.
You know, it's funny, like
push you.
A few months ago, I had launched a different product course, and I did a beta test. And in the beta test, I had 20 agents access the product for free. And within the beta test, I was still selling the product, and I had 10 agents sign up and actually paid money for it. Out of those, I had 8 of them that completed, eight people who paid that completed the course and the product. And then all 20 who did not pay, did not complete it. And it's the same course for everybody. It's just we value things differently when we have that accountability. And it's like when someone's prospecting. I know that my old coach used to have us do this, put hundreds or 20s or dollar bills or whatever it is on a clothesline when we're prospecting. And if we don't make the call, then whatever, each call we make from our goal, you know, you take it down, you get to put that money in your pocket. If you don't, then you take that money that's left and you send it to like your ex-girlfriend or something, you know? I never sent it to my ex-girlfriend, but
yeah. Yeah. What you're talking about, it was my second point. So we're on the same page. Is, you know, if you've got to gamify your life, you've got to gamify your business if you want to enjoy what you're doing, and creating that type of accountability that's gamifying it. And that could be as simple as like, if I get 50 contacts today, you know, I'm going to go to the, you know, I'm going to order I'm going to supersize my meal. You know, whatever motivates you to have a reward, or I'm going to buy myself a new pair of shoes, or I'm going to, you know, whatever it is, you've got to have that stuff in there, because that's the self-accountability that will help you. And again, sometimes that's not enough. You need to include people throughout your community that will help you do that, and keep you accountable. Even the agent that was in here in our office prospecting this morning, they get on Google Hangouts with agents. He's got a group of people throughout the country, and they get on Google Hangouts and they just have it muted. They're just on the screen while they're all prospecting, because they're all watching each other prospect. They can't even hear each other. But I
was doing that for years too. And I even had the volume on because I want to hear what they're saying.
Right.
You know, like when someone answers, okay, then, you know, I'll mute it, but I want to hear what they're saying because I'm learning from them. They're learning from me. That's awesome. Later on, I want to know who it is that's prospecting over there. I probably know them.
You got it.
Well, Curtis, why don't you, well, first, why don't I just let everybody know that if, RedX obviously is the provider, like the leading provider of data information for expireds, FSBOs, FRBOs, geo leads, and I will show you how to get some savings through RedX. Curtis was kind enough to give my listeners a special offer, and I'll show you how to get that in a little bit. But Curtis, why don't you kind of let everybody know what they can take away from this and how they can work with RedX?
Sure. Look, we just want to provide the best information we can. Come to our website, theredx.com, THEREDX.com. Click on the blog and just start reading, watching the videos. At the top of all of our blogs, we actually do an audio version of our blog. So you can just download and actually listen to the blog instead of read it. And however you want to consume the information, we've got it there for you to help you build sustainable businesses. And along the way, you're going to see that you probably need to add more lead types, or you probably need to add some technology like a dialer or a lead management system. And we've got all of that for you. But just start at our blog and jump in and see what we're doing to help agents build sustainable businesses. And then you can decide if, the listeners can decide if it's something that they want to jump in on and use our tools. But first, just start on our blog and get to know us a little bit and see if we want to work together.
Yeah. Dude, you are amazing. And in this conversation, I didn't realize how many things we had in common. And I'm really appreciative, and so are the listeners, of all of the value that you've added. Guys, I'll put the link somewhere below in the comments to where, if you want to check out RedX, there's going to be an offer where you have some savings on that. And I'll put the link to the blog as well to make it easy. So
awesome.
Thank you, Curtis. Appreciate you being
thanks
on.
So much.
You got it.
Okay, thanks. We'll see you.